Moon Mysteries and the Ancient Greeks, Mythology and Astronomy of Earth's Natural Satellite in Greece, the Moon. And for those of you who ask me, do I ever see the moon in Greece like this? The answer will surprise you, yes. Especially in August, the August moon. And it's just unbelievably huge and beautiful and yellow. Of course, when it, as the night goes on, it becomes smaller and wider, of course. But in the early night, it's like this. It's just beautiful. And now we know that, yes, the Greeks did know that the moon is roughly a quarter the size of the Earth, but also that it's about 30 times Earth diameters from the Earth as well. So the Greeks knew all this. But the surprising thing is that the Peloponnese, the cities in the Peloponnese are built in specific locations. I didn't know this, I just found this out a few minutes ago. They're built on specific locations, outlining the constellations of our solar system. Like the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, Orion and his belt, and the twins, Didymus, and Didymus is around Sparta, the Laconia area. The Small Dipper is around, it has this branch towards Mycene. You know where Mycene is? That's where they had the Agamemnon's palace. Agamemnon was also buried there. And that's just around an hour's drive south from Corinth. Corinth is about an hour's drive out of Athens. So you'll see the map as well. It's just unbelievably. Why would they do that? The question is, why would they want to build their cities on the junctions of the stars of these constellations? For the life of me, I have no idea, but they did. And they also have a legend that there were people living in the Peloponnese before the Earth had its natural satellite, the Moon. Now, the Moon is an astronomical body that orbits planet Earth and is Earth's only permanent natural satellite. It is the 5th largest natural satellite in the solar system and the largest among planetary satellites relative to the size of the planet that it orbits, its primary planet. The Moon is after Jupiter's satellite, Io, the second densest satellite in the solar system among those whose densities are known. The Moon is thought to have formed about 4.51 billion years ago, not long after our Earth. The most widely accepted explanation is that the Moon formed from the debris left over after a giant impact between Earth and Mars-sized body called Theia. The Moon is synchronous rotation with Earth and thus always shows the same side to Earth, the near side. The near side is marked by dark volcanic maria that fill the spaces between the bright ancient crustal highlands and the prominent impact craters. After the Sun, the Moon is the second brightest regularly visible celestial object in the Earth's sky, and its surface is actually dark, although compared to the night sky, it appears very bright, with a reflectance just slightly higher than that of of worn asphalt. Its gravitational influence produces the ocean tides, body tides, the land tides, and the slightest lengthening of the day. The Moon's average orbital distance is 384,402 kilometers, or 8.21 light seconds. It's about 30 times the diameter of Earth, and the Moon's apparent size in the sky is about the same as that of the Sun, because it is 400 times farther and larger. Therefore, the Moon covers the Sun nearly precisely during a total solar eclipse. This matching of appropriate visual size will not continue in the far future because the Moon's distance from the Earth is slowly increasing. In Proto-Indo-European religion, the moon was personified as the male god Mechnot. The ancient Sumerians believed that the moon was the god Nana, who was the father of Inanna, the goddess of the planet Venus, and Utu, the god of the sun. Nana was later known as Sin and was particularly associated with magic and sorcery. And in Greco-Roman mythology, the sun and the moon are represented as male and female, respectively Ilios and Sol and Selene for Luna. This is a development unique to the Eastern Mediterranean, and traces of an earlier male moon in the Greek tradition are preserved in the figure of Menelaus. In Mesopotamian iconography, the crescent was the primary symbol of Nana, Sin, and in ancient Greek art, the moon goddess Selene was represented wearing a crescent on her headgear in an arrangement reminiscent of horns. The star and crescent arrangement also goes back to the Bronze Age, representing either the sun and moon or the moon and planet Venus in combination. It came to represent the goddess Artemis or Hecate, and via the patronage of Hecate came to be used as a symbol of Byzantium. The iconographic tradition of representing sun and moon with faces developed in the late medieval period. Philosophers Aristotle and Pliny the Elder argued that the full moon induced insanity in susceptible individuals, believing that the brain, which is mostly water, must be affected by the moon and its power over the tides. But the moon's gravity is too slight to affect any single person. The moon's regular phases make it a very convenient timepiece, and the periods of its waxing and waning form the basis of many of the oldest calendars. The approximately 30-day month is an approximation of the lunar calendar, the lunar cycle. The pi root of moon, Mechnot, derives from the pi verbal root mech, to measure, indication of functional concept of the moon, hence marker of the month, and echoing the moon's importance to many ancient cultures in measuring time. See Latin mensis and Greek minus, mis, or mean, men, meaning month, minus. Most historical calendars are lunisolar. In Greek mythology, Selene, the moon, Selene, is the goddess of the moon. She's the daughter of the Titans Hyperion and Thea, and sister of the sun god Ilios, and Eos, goddess of the dawn. She drives her moon chariot across the heavens. Several lovers are attributed to her in various myths, including Zeus, Pan, and the mortal Endymion. In classic times, Selene was often identified with Artemis, much as her brother Ilios was identified with Apollo. Selene and Artemis are also associated with Hecate, and all three were regarded as lunar goddesses, but only Selene was regarded as the personification of the moon itself. Her Roman equivalent is Luna. The usual account of Selene's origin is given by Hesiod. In the Theogony, the sun god Hyperion espoused his sister Thea, who gave birth to great Ilios and clear Selene and Eos, who shines upon all that are on earth and upon the deathless gods who live in the wide heaven. Moon figures are found on Cretan rings and gems, perhaps indicating the Minoan moon culture, but apart from the role played by the moon itself in magic, folklore, and poetry, and despite the later worship of the Phrygian moon god men, there was relatively little worship of Selene. An oracular sanctuary existed near Thalamea in Laconia, that's in Sparta. Described by Pausanias, it contains statues of Pasiphae and Ilios, and here Pasiphae used as an epithet of Selene instead of referring to the daughter of Ilios and the wife of Minos. Pausanias also described seeing two stone images in the marketplace of Elis, one of the sun and the other of the moon, from the heads of which projected the rays of the sun and the horns of the crescent moon. Originally, Panthea may have been an epithet of Selene, but by at least the time of the late Homeric hymn, Pandia had become a daughter of Zeus, and Selene, Pandia or Pandia Selene, may have personified the full moon. And an Athenian festival called the Pandia, usually considered to be a festival for Zeus, was perhaps celebrated on the full moon and may have been associated with Selene. Geographically, ancient Arcadia occupied the highlands of the center of the Peloponnese. The Arcadians were an ancient Greek tribe which was situated in the mountainous Peloponnese, and is considered one of the oldest Greek tribes which settled in Greece, and was probably a relative tribe of the Proto-Greeks, who are mentioned by the ancient authors as Pelasgians. Whilst Herodotus seems to have found the idea that the Arcadians were not Greek far-fetched, it is clear that the Arcadians were considered as the original inhabitants of the region, and is testified by ancient myths like the myth of Arcus, the myth of Lycaon, etc. Arcadia is also one of the regions described in the catalogue of ships in the Iliad. Agamemnon himself gave Arcadia the ships for the Trojan War because Arcadia did not have a navy. Due to its remote mountainous character, Arcadia seems to have been a cultural refuge. And when during the Greek Dark Age, 1200 BC to 800 BC, Doric Greek dialects were introduced to the Peloponnese, the older language apparently survived in Arcadia and formed part of the Arcado-Cypriot group of Greek dialects. The Arcadians founded numerous towns. Lycosura was a city of Arcadia said by Pausanias to be the oldest city in the world, although there is no evidence for its existence before the 4th century BC. Its current significance is chiefly associated with the sanctuary of the goddess Despina, which contained a colossal sculptural group that perhaps inaccurately Pausanias wrote was made by Damophon of Messene. This group comprises argolithic technique statues of Despina and Demeter seated on a throne, with statues of Artemis and the Titan Antios standing on either side of them, all in Pantelic marble, white marble that is, the same marble of the Acropolis. The dates of both the temple and the sculptural group have occasioned some dispute. Remains of the stoa, altars, and other structures have been found at the site as well. The sanctuary of Despina Lycosura is located 9 kilometers west-southwest of Megalopolis and 7 kilometers south-southwest of Mount Lycaon and 160 kilometers southwest of Athens. In the 2nd century AD, the Greek perigetic writer Pausanias relied on personal observations, available texts, and consultations with local persons, wrote the only text extant account of the ancient city and its sanctuary. He relates that Lycosura was founded by Lycaon, the son of Pelasgus, and asserted that it was the oldest city in the world. He noted that Clitor, the grandson of Arcus, hence the toponym Arcadia, dwelled in Lycosura. In Greek mythology, Pelasgus was the eponym ancestor of the Pelasgians, the mythological inhabitants of Greece who established the worship of the Dodonian Zeus, Hephaestus, the Kabiri, and other divinities, and in different parts of the country once occupied by Pelasgians, there existed different traditions as to the origin and connection of Pelasgus. The ancient Greeks even used to believe that he was the first man, and according to Arcadian tradition, he was either an autochthon or the son of Zeus by Niobe, brother of Arcus. The Oceanide Melibea, the nymph Selene or Denaria, became by him the mother of Lycaon of Arcadia, and in Greek mythology, Lycaon was the king of Arcadia, son of Pelasgus and Melibea, who in the most popular version of the myth tested Zeus' omniscience by serving him the roasted flesh of Lycaon's own son, Nyctimus, in order to see whether Zeus was truly all-knowing. In return for these gruesome deeds, Zeus transformed Lycaon into a wolf, Lyco is wolf in Greek, along with his offspring. Nyctimus was restored to life. Despite being notorious for his horrific deeds, Lycaon was also remembered as a cultural hero. He was believed to have founded the city Lycosura, to have established the cult of Zeus, Lycius, and to have started the tradition of the Lycian Games, which Pausanias thinks were older than the Pan-Athenaic Games. According to Hygieus, Lycion dedicated the first temple to Hermes of Cyllene. The Arcadian town Nonacris was thought to have been named after the wife of Lycion. Arcus was a hunter who became king of Arcadia. He was remembered for having taught people the art of weaving and baking bread. Arcus was the son of Zeus and Callisto. Arcus became the new king of Arcadia and the country's greatest hunter. One day, when Arcus went hunting in the woods, he came across his mother. Seeing her son after so long, she went forth to embrace him. Not knowing that the bear was his mother, Arcus, meaning bear, he went to kill her with an arrow. Zeus, however, watching over them, stopped Arcus from shooting Callisto and turned Arcus into a bear, then putting them into the stars. They are now referred to as Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the big and little bears, Ursa. When Hera heard of that, she became so angry that she asked Tethys to keep them in a certain place so that the constellations would never sink below the horizon and receive water. The name Pelasgians was used by classical Greek writers to either refer to populations that were the ancestors or forerunners of the Greeks, or to signify all pre-classical indigenies of Greece. And in general, Pelasgian has come to mean more broadly all the indigenous inhabitants of the Aegean Sea region and their cultures, a hold-all term for an ancient, primitive, and presumably indigenous people in the Greek world. During the classical period, enclaves under the name survived in several locations of mainland Greece, Crete, and other area regions of the Aegean. Populations identified as Pelasgian spoke the language or languages that at the time Greeks identified as barbaric, though some ancient writers nonetheless described the Pelasgians as Greeks. The Pelasgians first appeared in the poems of Homer. Those who are stated to be the Pelasgians in the Iliad are among the allies of Troy. Later, Greek writers offered little unanimity over which sites and regions were Pelasgian. One of the first was Hesiod. He called the oracle Dodoni. By the way, it's a Hebrew name, Dudun, or Dodoni. It's Greek and it's also Hebrew. By the way, ancient Greek is the Hebrew language. There is a book written by two Hebrew linguists, titled Hebrew is Ancient Greek with a Mask On. Okay? We even have the same naming for the letters. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta. Aleph, Beta, Gamma, Delta. It's the same. Okay, but that's another topic to talk about later. One of the first was Hesiod. He called the oracle Duduna, identified by reference to the oak, or seat of Pelasgians, clarifying Homer's Pelasgic Zeus. He also mentions that Pelasgus, the eponymous ancestor of the Pelasgians, was the father of King Laocoon of Arcadia. In the history of the Peloponnesian War, the Greek historian Thucydides wrote down about the Pelasgians, stating that before the time of Helen, son of Deucalion, by the way, is Deucalosionos, meaning the person of good omen being Noah. Okay, in the Apocrypha of Moses, Moses describes that what the Greeks call Deucalion is what the Hebrews called Noah, meaning the man of good omen, Deucalion. Def naerthi, to come, we want to receive, kalos, good, ionos, omen. So that's the meaning of the name Deucalion, and also Noah, as described in the Old Testament, means the man of good omen. Now, before the time of Helen and the son of Deucalion, Helen of the Hellenes. Okay, the Hellenes were from the son of Noah. One of there were three. There were Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Japheth was the and his sons were the people, Javan, for example. The Turks even call us today Javan. Javan, they call us. They settled in Greece. Okay, so it was not till Hellene and his sons grew strong in Theotis and were invited as allies into the other cities that one by one they gradually acquired from the connection the name of Hellenes, Greeks that is, though Ellin. Although a long time elapsed before the name could fasten itself upon all, he regards the Athenians as having lived in scattered independent settlements in Attica, but at some time after Theseus they changed residence to Athens, which was already populated. A plot of the land below the Acropolis was called Pelasgian and was regarded as cursed, but the Athenians settled there anyway. In historic times, the earth was moonless. Here we go. Okay? In historic times, okay, this is, all right, I lost the content, where is it? Okay. In historical times, the earth was moonless. Giorgio Bruno, 16th century Italian philosopher, is reputed to have written in De Immenso, "There are those who have believed that there was a certain time, as our mythology says, that when the moon, which was believed to be younger than the sun, was not yet created, the Arcadians, who dwelt not far from the Po, were believed to have been in existence before it, the moon." So the Arcadians were in existence before the moon. Thothorus writes in his first book that the moon had appeared a little while before the war which was fought by Hercules against the giants. Aristogius and Dionysius Chalcidensis, in the first of their works, confirm the same. Naseas said that the Arcadians were born before the moon, and so they were called Proselenian, Proselenein. They were called Proselenian, meaning before the moon. Bruno goes on to step upon the sensibilities of future scholars by noting that, quote, "The earth, which is of the same species as the moon, is of creatable and destructible substance, and is truly animal and even mortal, although divine. Therefore the planets, the worlds, are able to be created and destroyed, and it is not possible that they have been eternal, since we have proved them to be alterable and consisting of changing parts." End quote. Emanuel Velikovsky has discussed the same idea by noting that one of the most remote recollections of mankind is in regard to that period of Earth's history when it was moonless. Emanuel Velikovsky quotes everyone from Democritus and Anaxagoras to Aristotle and Apollonius of Rhodes to show that such pre-Hellenic time existed. Those humans living at that time were called Pelasgians, Proselenes, before the moon, and Arcadians, pre-Danae and pre-Deucalion, before Noah. They were said to have dwelt in the mountains, fed on acorns, and lived as aborigines. Plutarch, Hippolytus, Censorinus, and a doubting Lucian wrote of pre-lunar people, as did Ovid, who said that the Arcadians possessed their land before the birth of Jove, that is Jupiter, and were older than the moon. There are even biblical references which allude to the moonless earth, or at least can be so interpreted. Finally, the memory of the moonless earth is contained in the oral traditions of such Indians as those of the Bogota highlands in eastern Cordilleras of Colombia. Hence, according to tribesmen of Chimchas, in the earlier times when the moon was not yet in the heavens, quote unquote. The reference to the aboriginal nature of the pre-moon folk and the fact that they lived before the birth of Jove, that is Jupiter, is particularly noteworthy. The period when the earth was moonless is probably the most remote recollection of mankind. Democritus and Anaxagoras taught that there was a time when the earth was without a moon. Aristotle wrote that Arcadia in Greece, before being inhabited by the Hellenes, had a population of Pelasgians. And that these aborigines occupied the land already before there was a moon in the sky above the earth. For this reason, they were called Proselenes. Apollonius of Rhodes mentioned the time, quote, when not all the orbs were yet in the heavens, before the Danae and Deucalion races came into existence, and only the Arcadians lived, of whom it is said that they dwelt on mountains and fed on acorns before there was a moon, end quote. Plutarch wrote in the Roman Questions, quote, there were Arcadians of Evanders following the so-called pre-lunar people. Similarly wrote Ovid, the Arcadians are said to have possessed their land before the birth of Jove, and the folk is older than the moon, end quote. Hippolytus refers to the legend that Arcadia brought forth Pelasgus of greater antiquity than the moon. Lucian in his astrology says that the Arcadians affirm in their folly that they are older than the moon, end quote. Censorinus also alludes to the time in the past when there was no moon in the sky. By the Archean period, educated Greek men and women knew from observing solar eclipses and ships sailing in the horizon that the moon was a round ball. The astronomer Thales in the 600s BC also knew that the moon did not make its own light, but shone by reflecting light from the sun. In 400s BC, Greek scientists like Anaxagoras knew why eclipses happened. By the Hellenistic period in 200s BC, Aristarchus figured out that the moon went around the earth, and based on the work of the Libyan Eratosthenes about how big the moon was. The development of astronomy by the Greek and Hellenistic astronomers is to be a major phase in the history of astronomy. Greek astronomy is characterized from the start by seeing a rational physical explanation for celestial phenomena. Let's remember that they also had the Antikythera device. It was a clock keeping tabs of eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses, and also the movement of the constellations above the earth. Now, Greek astronomy, names of the stars, asteroids, planets. It influenced Indian, Arabic, Islamic, and Western European astronomy. Philolaus, who lived between 480 BC and up to 405 BC. The Pythagoreans described the cosmos with the stars, planets, sun, moon, earth, and a counter-earth, Andichthon, 10 bodies in all, circling the unseen central fire. But the counter-earth was exactly opposite our earth on the other side of the sun, and we never see it. It goes the same rate as us, but we never see it because it's on the other side of the sun. That's the Andichthon, the counter-earth. 10 bodies in all circling an unseen central fire. Such reports show that Greeks of the 6th and 5th centuries BC were aware of the planets and speculated about the structure of the cosmos. Also, a more detailed description about the cosmos, star, sun, moon, earth, can be found in the Orphism, which dates back to the end of the 5th century BC, and is probably even older. With the lyrics of the Orphic poems, we can find remarkable information such as that the earth is round, it has an axis and it moves around it in one day, it has 3 climate zones, and that the sun magnetizes the stars and planets. And in the 3rd century BC, Aristarchus of Samos proposed an alternate cosmology arrangement of the universe, a heliocentric model of the solar system, placing the sun, not the earth, in the center of the known universe. He was the Greek Copernicus of his time. His astronomical ideas were not well received, however, and only a few brief references to them are preserved. We know the name of one follower of Aristarchus, Seleucus of Seleucia. Aristarchus also wrote a book on the sizes of the distances of the moon and the sun, which is his only work to have survived. In this work, he calculated the size of sun and moon, as well as their distances from the earth in earth radii. On the sizes and distances of the moon and the sun, peri megathon ke apostematon is widely accepted as the only text work written by Aristarchus of Samos, an ancient Greek astronomer who lived about 310 to 230 BC. This work calculates the size of the sun and moon, as well as the distance from the Earth in terms of Earth's radius. Shortly afterwards, Eratosthenes calculated the size of the Earth, providing a value for the Earth radii which could be plugged into Aristarchus' calculation. Hipparchus wrote another book on the sizes, the distance of sun and moon, which has not survived. Both Aristarchus and Hipparchus drastically underestimated the distance of the sun from the Earth. Hipparchus is considered to have been among the most important Greek astronomers because he introduced the concept of exact prediction into astronomy. He was also the last innovative astronomer before Claudius Ptolemy, a mathematician who worked at Alexandria in Rome and Egypt the 2nd century. Ptolemy's work on astronomy and astrology including the Almagest, the planetary hypothesis, and the Tetravivlos, as well as the handy tables, the canonic inscription, the canopic inscription, and other minor works. The Almagest is one of the most influential books in the history of Western astronomy. In this book, Ptolemy explains how to predict the behavior of the planets, as Hipparchus could not, with the introduction of new mathematical tool, the equant. The Almagest gave a comprehensive treatment of astronomy, incorporating theorems, models, and observations from many mathematicians. The fact may explain the survival in contrast to more specialized works that were neglected and lost. A True Story is a novel written in the 2nd century AD by Lucian of Samosata, ancient city in the Euphrates River, a Greek-speaking author of Syrian descent. The novel is a satire of outlandish tales which had been reported in ancient sources, but I'm not going to go into that. What I wanted to tell you is I wanted to go through the fact that the Arcadians were before the moon. They were living there. They were Proselenes, and they were there before the moon was a natural satellite of Earth. So that it's not just the ancient Greeks that had this in their history or their legend or their mythology. It's also that other peoples and tribes of other countries and other continents of the world had the same legends, which must have some meaning to it. This is on Greek History and Prehistory Blogspot, and you'll find all his sources there as well, if you want to go and see where he got all the sources from. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.